Mr. President, and the good chairwoman of the Finance Committee of the Senate. My first query would be that given that inflation for October was recorded at 2.3, well within the desired 2.4 target band of the BSP, rice inflation nevertheless accelerated from 5.7 to 9.6 the previous month, despite the implementation of the lower rice tariffs from 35 to 15% August 2024. So when will the NEDA board conduct its review of the rice tariff under the Comprehensive Tariff Program for 2024 to 2028, given that clearly the rice inflation, headline inflation, continues at record pace? We're already at 15%. Ibabagsak pa natin sa 0 po.
They are going to submit to the president within the end of the month the report on the effects of the EO and a recommendation therein.
Okay, we look forward to that. In the meantime, perhaps our economists can explain why rice inflation accelerated instead of decelerated in the previous month. Why so? We were promised the opposite.
Kasi in October of last year, we had a price cap. It was low. And now it's the price cap. So it's a basic price.
Tumataas talaga bago mag-holidays.
Yung just that October last year.
Wala na po tayong ibabagsak. Nasa 15% na lang po.
Inflation pa lang.
Kung yan lang ang tanging solusyon natin, mukhang hindi uubre.
Mr. President, supposedly last October, last year, there was actually a price cap imposed by the government.
That's correct. Which also didn't work.
But it was lower than it is now. I mean, the inflation.
Yes, as a result, however, we all know that there was no rice available and traders were holding on to their warehouse supply and all sorts of artificial shortages were occurring throughout the country.
It's not expected.
Well, according to the NEDA secretary, the inflation right now is just a blip, and for the rice in particular, and they expect it to go lower.
It's almost double po.
Siya nagpa-promise
Kapitbahay
daw.
ko po yan sa Batak, Ilocos Norte.
Because October 2023,
It's a major blip po. Halos doble.
Kasi
5% na mamayagpag sa 9.6.
October 23 daw, sobrang bagsak yung presyo ng rice dahil sa price cap. Ano ito last year?
Parang hindi yata.
So base effect daw.
Okay, but I don't think that's quite the truth. In the meantime, given that we can't seem to look forward to a better rice prices, nor can we be assured that there are any other solutions aside from artificially set price ceilings and very little wiggle room in 15% tariff rates. The other issue is, how much is the projected tariff loss for the implementation of the lower rice tariff? I think the BOC has released estimates for the revenue loss, and I'd like to hear what those rates are assumed to be. Kasi maliban sa bumagsak na nga yung taripa,
tumaas pa yung presyo.
Tumaas pa rin ang inflation, at sa kabila nun, lugi pa tayo, bagsak din ang koleksyon. Kaya si Secretary Recto hindi matutuwa niyan. Kita natin, ang laki-laki ng binagsak o babagsak ng ating koleksyon ayon sa ating BOC. Magkano kaya ang revenue loss natin?
Magkano?
Anticipated under the new regime of 15%? Nasa 16 plus na eh. Ang nabasa ko po sa dyaryo, mula sa 28.477 billion, ang revenue loss natin, 16.344 billion, nasa 12.103 billion. Menos pa sa kalahati ito, mukhang 1/3 na lang matitira. Tama ba to? Di wala na tayong pamumudnot sa ating mga magsasaka. Hindi na nga nila mabenta, wala pa silang maaasahang tulong.
So we lose about 20 billion, 10 billion for the first 6 months, 9 billion for the first 6 months.
9B, first
Yeah.
6 months.
For a year, it's about 20 billion.
20 billion, it's getting bigger and bigger po. Nag-umpisa tayo sa 15B, nasa 16 and a half nung nakaraan. Ngayon na 20 billion na. Palaki ng palaki po to. So, ang balita ko, nangako naman si Secretary Recto na ipapasok sa GAA at yung kakulangan, siya na ang magpupuno. Tama po ba? Saan kukunin yan? Kasi parang palipat-lipat lang tayo ng pera nito. So, is the consideration therefore, hindi umuubra yung rice tariff reduction. Pag tuloy-tuloy pa to at hindi bumabagsak ang presyo ng bigas, ang ibig sabihin ba yung ating economic managers ay itataas na naman ang taripa sa 35% to cover the projected revenue loss? Kasi hindi naman pwedeng gaan ng gaay ang pupuno sa 20 billion na kulang.
Nevertheless, part of the plan is to talk to the appraisers, sure that they pass on the
Well, I guess the major plan is you need to talk to the traders to make sure that they pass on the benefits.
Ang mahirap po, alam naman ng mga taga-Vietnam, taga-India, at sa kung saan-saan na nangangailangan tayo ng bigas. Kaya nagtataas din sila ng presyo. Sinasamantala tayo. Nakikita natin, pinapayaman natin yung mga magsasaka sa ibang bansa, samantalang kinakawawa yung magsasakang Pilipino. Tama po ba to? Hindi ba ikukonsidera ng ating mga economic managers na itaas na muli sa 35% at mapuno yung projected revenue loss?
part of the plan is what the things that done.
Part of the plan is also to encourage and to increase more production.
Parang hindi naman realidad yan. Nakita naman natin sunod-sunod ng bagyo, hindi pa tapos yung alphabet po. Marami pang letra. At tigit sa lahat, nakita natin ang presyo ng abono, ang presyo ng krudo, nagsisitaasan, double whammy po. Palagay ko, kinakailangan siguro mag-isip tayo kung ano pa yung plano. Kasi itong mga planong to, itong artificial price ceilings, pagkatapos itong mga taripa na wala nang ibababa, parang hindi nagwo-work. Kailangan siguro mag-isip pa. So, yun lang yung tanong ko. Sana may magandang balita, pero wala pa akong naririnig. In the meantime, can we be updated on the computed cash balance of the National Treasury? Can you verify that we ended, in fact, the year 2023 with the balance of 787.1 billion? Tama ba yung aking numero? Oh, I think you're adjusting for borrowing. So are we reading the same numbers po? Nakaka-nervous po to. Hindi natin alam kung magkano yung pera natin. Kinakabahan ako, ba't natatagalan? Dapat simpleng-simpleng tanong yun. As of end 2023.
Yeah, more or less you are correct, Mr. Chair, about 700 plus
Yes,
billion.
787.1 billion with a net change in cash position of 505.8 billion brought about by a borrowing of 1.875 trillion against the deficit of 970.2 billion. Is it safe to assume that the Treasury still has at least 1.2 trillion to fund the rest of 2024? Parang tama yun, di ba? Arithmetic lang po. So we have enough 1.2 trillion. Tama ba yung nabasa ko sa dyaryo? Press release po ninyo to. If it is a press release of Secretary Rector, it's infallible. It's ex cathedra.
So in short, we can pay for our obligations for 2024, Mr. Chair.
So is there already a projected cash balance for the end of this year, 2024? The projected cash balance of the National Treasury at the end of this year, since we're already right smack in the last quarter, siguro naman may projected cash balance na tayo at this point.
What the previous finance secretary says in open session, we can provide you the numbers privately.
Privately. So it will be an executive session or will be provided at a later juncture. It's just projected, hindi naman siya absolute.
We will have a positive cash balance.
We can
Okay.
submit that to you,
Yes. So
Mr. President.
that being the case, may I proceed to another concern? The Bangko Sentral of ng Pilipinas sold 24.95 tons of gold on the first quarter, the first half of this year, according to the World Gold Council. Can we be updated on the total net sales of gold for this year? Given that we have enough money to fund our expenses, did the BSP sell more gold even after the 25 tons almost in the first half? How much gold have you actually sold?
First we buying. So far the total.
Yes,
As of July 2024 lang po, di ba? Ano to? 16 ano? Billion?
Abala ang marami po sa atin, sa ating mga mamayan, pati ating mga bangkero, pagkat ang ibang bansa bumibili ng ginto, bakit daw tayo biglang nagbabagsak at nagbebenta ng ginto? Samantalang sinabi po ninyo, sapat naman ang ating pera, bakit ba tayo nagbebenta ng katakot-takot?
16 billion. 16 billion. 15 billion, 733,495,000. Okay. Tapos, yan yung bilhin natin. Oo. So far, Mr. Chair, for July 2024, 16 billion 733 yung binili natin worth of gold. Ngayon, magkano yung binenta natin?
Yes, we're aware Republic Act 7076 mandates all small miners to sell their gold first to the BSP. That's established by law. So we are saying that in terms of value, 16 billion was bought mid-year. In terms of weight, how much weight, how many tons of gold did we buy from local small and other local miners?
In terms of weight daw. Yung weight nitong 16 billion. Anong weight niya? Magkano ba yung price ng gold ngayon? Tapos i-divide na lang. Per kilo? Per ounce?
Sige po, baka naman kailangan hanapin. Total, nasagot na rin in terms of value, nasa 16 billion. Later on, you can probably tell us in terms of weight, ano?
Okay, we're computing that based on the amount released so
Tama.
far.
Sige po, but there's also been a question about the price at which we are buying gold. Marami rin nagtatanong
Ano ba
dyan.
yung 2,000 something per ounce? Per
Well, that's the world rate. The US dollar rate is at 2,754.27.
But we need to ask how much did we
But how
spend?
much did we buy from the local miners? Can we go back to the first question? How much did we sell? What's our total net sales for this year so far? Apparently, we sold 24.95 tons of gold in the first half.
Pa tayo nun?
Have we been selling since?
Benta? Ay, yung... Magkano yung nabenta natin? Wala.
Hindi ko sure. Kaya nga eh. Napakaliit po nung ating sales. Kung tutuusin, binili lang natin 16 billion, pero yung binenta natin nasa 25 tons. Parang napakalaki naman yata. Can we be enlightened? Perhaps if you don't have the data on hand, maybe at least request that it be submitted shortly.
Mr. President, it could also be a part of the reserve strategy of the central bank. So maraming ang binili na para sa reserve, but we will get a definitive answer.
That would appear to be the opposite. Di ba baliktad yun? Kung nagre-reserve ka, nag-iipon ka, hindi ka nagbebenta. Can we be enlightened on the rationale
Para
of the
makakuha ng
BSP?
cash reserve.
Selling its
binibenta
old
nila.
holdings. Nagbebenta para sa cash reserve.
Oh.
Pero kasasabi lang, meron tayong 1.2 trillion to fund the rest of 2024.
Iba naman
even
kasi,
going
hindi
to
naman galing sa
2025.
central bank yung funding natin for the GAA.
Tama.
So maybe it's just central bank.
Just of that, the gross international reserves today is $112 billion, highest ever.
And because of that, maybe one of the contributing factors is that our dollar reserve is 112 billion US dollars, which is the highest ever.
Yes, but the question also arises, and it has been asked not only here in the Philippines but elsewhere, what's the overall effect of the sale of gold on our gross international reserves?
Well,
sa BSP, yung GIR natin, syempre babagsak din yan, ano?
tumaas actually. Our dollar reserves increased.
The dollar reserves increased, pero yung overall, yung gross reserve, including everything we have.
9% of our GIR is still in gold.
It's still in gold.
Oo.
So, yes, but this is quite a large amount. This is largest amount that we've heard in the past several years. Assuming that the gold was therefore converted to US dollars, where were the proceeds of the gold sales invested? Do we expect those assets to outperform gold, which has seen stunning prices this year?
Actually, Mr. President, the reason why also part of the reserves were sold is because of the high demand and price of gold. Now, instead of holding on to it, when you also forecast that, or when you analyze that it's a high number or it's in demand, that's the time actually you also sell, but you keep a certain percentage for reserves. So the particulars of which all of your questions,
Perhaps
Mr.
you can
President,
submit them. at a
will be
certain-
submitted.
Okay. We also would like to know what's the average price of the total gold sales of BSP. Is it higher than the current price of gold at 2,754.27 per troy ounce, which I believe is a record amount. So I doubt that, in fact, we sold at this exceedingly high amount. So our GIR could arguably been higher if we held on to the gold instead of selling it from the beginning of the year onwards.
Syempre, of course, we want to sell it when the price is high. Di ba, Mr. President?
But
Okay,
it
now,
would have been wiser if we had held on to it kasi pataas ng pataas, hindi
yeah,
po.
but that's also a risk you take, di ba? Parang you also try to see your appetite for risk, di ba? You see that maybe you already have a threshold of this much. Anyway, bumawi na tayo ng ganito. We can sell here, but let's also keep. Because in the future, we still have the 9%. We can still sell that eventually. I mean, while we are also garnering more reserves, yung 9% na yun, ang pwede naman pag all-time high pa rin ang gold. Pero I share again, as I mentioned to our other colleagues, I share also your curiosity, and I would like to know how much the central bank sells per ounce gold and when. So we can compare to the market price. Baka naman sabihin nilang impressive 2,700 per ounce, yun pala, at the time they sold it, it was worth so much more or so much less. So please submit that to us.
Yes.
And where did you
and
put the
also-
proceeds
Yes.
of those?
And perhaps also
Multiple A bonds of Senator.
most importantly, the rationale for doing so, given that so many countries are in fact in a mad rush to acquire gold. And here we are unloading our own gold. So it's a little peculiar. The timing seems to be different. I will admit, in fact, that everyone has a different investment strategy. But having said that, why are we so much against the crowd? In any case, we'll await your information and proceed to what several think tanks have advised, that a viable option would be to join the Philippines to join the BRICS alliance. Given that new members from ASEAN have already been designated as partner states. So I just wanted to hear what our economic manager's opinion is with regards to this. Is there a Philippine plan to apply following the lead of our neighbors?
Not at the moment, Mr. President. At the moment, there's no proven or they don't see any benefit right now. We are already trade partners with those countries. And also, I believe that
I think
it may
trade
also
is
be
not
conditional.
a primary incentive to join the BRICS. It was to determine that there be an alternative currency and the lower cost of doing business and so on.
Our Secretary of Finance thinks that a lot of study has to be done, but right now there are no immediate benefits that we see. In fact, there are other trade relations that we need to operationalize. Right now, the preferred status in other European countries for our trade, our goods.
Our FTA po with the European Union is almost dormant, with all due respect.
That's why we need to be able to make sure that we revive it, if that's the right term for it. And
But we want to revive.
but what we want to revive is our economic cooperation with China.
Yes, my curiosity is simply why did Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam already join as designated partner states? Are we saying that we are entirely different from them?
For the situation, only Malaysia and Thailand.
Indonesia's kasama na per press release. Okay, I'm happy to be corrected. But it was very, very clear on several media outlets that Anwar and the new Thai government and the new Vietnam head of state all determined to join the BRICS. So this is not in our horizon, therefore. Can we update it in any case on the status of the Philippine RMB trading community launched in 2018? Is there any volume in our transactions that are directly denominated in renminbi instead of using the US dollar as an intermediary? Has anything happened to the RMB clearinghouse? Just by way of information.
None.
So we have no yuan reserves at all. All our reserves are held in US dollars. Is that correct?
Are all our reserves in US dollar?
So we only have US, yen, and euro.
We have US, yen, and euro, and gold.
Yes. Is it possible to get a breakdown? Or are we not allowed to find that out?
Maybe not today.
Is it possible that we can be provided with a breakdown of the gross international reserves of the BSP by currency type? Given that the bulk of the GIR, as you said earlier, is in foreign investment. So it's clear that our GIR is still dominated or ruled by dollar-denominated assets and foreign exchange. That's correct. I mean, it's by way of information lang.
Like the other requests, may we submit that at
That's fine.
when we
Sure.
come up with
I was just
data?
curious, the few tourists coming from China, can they directly convert renminbi to Filipino pesos without US intermediary?
I'm sure there are informed exchange.
No, I'm curious since we already stated that the 2018 yuan clearinghouse that was established is non-existent or has very little money in it. What then happens when where there are transactions with China?
Such a private banks, diba? Private banks, I believe that some of us who've had the time to go to Hong Kong's part of China, right? But that's Hong Kong dollars. You can get it from certain private institutions, banks,
Yes.
money changers. But
Yes.
the government itself is your question.
Yes, I'm aware. What the question is, what is the volume of transactions with China directly denominated in renminbi instead of using the US dollars or as an intermediary currency? It's just curious, and tourists also, because there's great difficulty converting from one to the other. So
And
I
you
was
lose
wondering,
sometimes in the process.
yes,
You lose.
the friction cost is quite high, and hence, are there any steps by the BSP in order to lower cost of doing business from BRICS countries for lower transaction and friction costs?
Actually, from my understanding also, Mr. President, some of our importers that buy from China, their suppliers also prefer a certain monetary exchange of using the US dollars.
Yes.
But of course, as you were saying, and I get the point, Mr. President, that sometimes it's better to use the currency directly so as to lessen devaluing in the exchange process.